The Badger State is home for Storm Murphy, who's been a key player for this Virginia Tech men's basketball team. Murphy grew up in Middleton, Wisconsin, which is about a 90-minute drive west from where we are here in Milwaukee. So while Virginia Tech had everything to lose last night, the Hokies have a lot to gain tonight as they prepare to take on number 2 seed Notre Dame at the top of the hour. And it's worth repeating, Kamila Valieva, only 15 years old. I can't imagine what she's had to go through this week. At the same time, though, it feels like this shouldn't have happened in the first place. Andrew, I'm wondering what's been some of the reaction after that free skate?
See the guys without the pads, they're so big. You know?
Oh my gosh, I mean, you could tell from the camera angle, I'm just like, hi, yes, tell me about your dreams. Well, everyone that crosses the finish line here has a story, and when Kate Buss finished her race, little did she know that even though she was the second female to cross the line, she actually won the race by 2 seconds.
But the fact that they're talking about it when they wear the shirt, you know, they tell the story.
Yeah, well, I'm wearing the shirt and we're talking about it. And, you know, he ordered originally 520 of these and he has sold each and every one of them. He is sold out of these shirts.
I guess you could probably say that Justin Fuente literally saved your life.
You know, paramedics were checking me out, looking at the wound and all that stuff. And I said, hey, can I please see Coach Fuente?
You know, I think about what Whit Babcock, the athletic director, said when he first started this search, and he wanted someone with prior head coaching experience. Now, Brent Pry brings 3 decades of coaching experience to Blacksburg, but this will be his first head coaching gig. Now, today's press conference brings to an end a wild few weeks here in the Commonwealth as both Virginia Tech and UVA were searching for new head coaches. Yeah, the Hokies getting some rest here at the Sheridan Times Square ahead of what's supposed to be a very busy Pinstripe Bowl Eve tomorrow.
And that's where we find WFXR sports reporter David DeGuzman, who's been following Virginia Tech all week long in the Big Apple. And David, I guess there is no shortage of storylines for today's game, huh?
Yeah, that's right, Amanda. From Connor Blumrick making his first ever career start at quarterback to J.C. Price seeing his brief run as interim head coach come to an end as Brent Pry takes over in the fall of 2022. This is far from the same team that took the field to open the season on Labor Day weekend. Well, remember, this week began with Virginia Tech visiting the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, getting perspective on one of the nation's darkest days. But in 2008, it was the Yankees helping the Hokies out in the wake of one of the school's toughest times. A baseball game, a simple gesture, linking forever Blacksburg with New York.
It's hard to really ever forget. I can say for myself, having been on campus in '07, and the starting pitcher a year later in '08, it's a common conversation for me, and it's hard, but I appreciate it because it kind of helps speak to, for me, the definition of being a Hokie.
In the aftermath of the Virginia Tech school shooting that claimed 32 lives, Andrew Wells knew that baseball would be part of the healing process.
We kind of felt like we were part of that catalyst, part of that movement to bring the community together, to bring campus together, to provide everyone kind of a distraction.
But it was the New York Yankees that lent a hand when Blacksburg needed it the most.
Steinbrenner, as we learned, had reached out to our athletics department, again, pretty quickly and said, hey, we want to be a part of this healing process. We're going to send our guys to play your guys. It's really hard to explain what it meant to me. But I recognized then, and I can fully appreciate now, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about our baseball program. It was about this campus, this community.
Less than a year after that dark day, the Yankees made the trip to the New River Valley to visit the April 16 Memorial and play an exhibition against the Virginia Tech baseball team at English Field. Yankees.
I'll never forget towing that rubber. I put my head down, and as I looked up, it was me and Johnny Damon, head to head.
Wells, a left-handed pitcher, made the start of a lifetime that no other Hokie had ever done before.
I faced, in order, Damon, Jeter, Abreu, A-Rod, and Giambi, and I gave up 1 unearned run. So I left the mound that day feeling pretty good. I felt like I'd pitched 20 innings walking off after that one inning of work.
The Yankees went on to win the 7-inning contest 11-0, but everyone knew the day had very little to do with baseball.
It was for the 32, and it was for the Hokies that we lost and for the tragic events that had taken place a year prior. And just an incredible gesture on behalf of the Yankees. That was the start of the Hokies-Yankees bond, because they did step up in a way that no one could have imagined. That day changed my life forever. Forever will be a Yankees fan.
In honor of what the Yankees have done for Virginia Tech over the years, the Hokies will be wearing the New York Yankees logo on a side of the helmets that they'll be wearing tomorrow at the Pinstripe Bowl. A neat gesture from the Hokies to say thank you to the New York Yankees. A couple of weeks ago, we told you about Blacksburg native Ian Ho, who will swim in the 50-meter freestyle at the Olympics for Team Hong Kong. His journey to becoming an Olympian took many twists and turns, but his parents watching it unfold from thousands of miles away.
Just talking about all the things that have happened in this past year and a half are absolutely absurd.
When Ian Ho qualified for the Tokyo Olympics last month in Hong Kong, his parents were watching from the other side of the world in Blacksburg.
I didn't sleep. I was just waiting for 5 o'clock so that I can get up and turn on my phone.
The accomplishment was a culmination of a journey that once seemed out of reach when Ian learned in January of 2020 that he wasn't even eligible to compete for Hong Kong.
They have a residency rule that they told me about last minute, and so I wouldn't have been able to go. I found out that I actually can't represent Hong Kong because I hadn't lived in Hong Kong for 1 year.
But Ian still had plans to swim in international meets, including one in April of 2020. Till his plans were turned upside down because of COVID-19.
As the pandemic progresses, we listened to the news, Hong Kong news, and realized Hong Kong is planning on closing their border March 19. He still need to go to Hong Kong to race. A few hours time, bought a ticket, and say, we're going in a few hours. And he landed in Hong Kong a few hours before the borders closed.
A few hours?
A few hours, yeah.
The meet Ian planned to swim in was canceled, and the Olympics were postponed to 2021, which became a silver lining as the extra time gave Ian a chance to fulfill his residency requirement.
We were on the phone with Ian. He said, my coach asked me to stay for a whole year. Then we just asked him, what will hold you back here? Are you really able to stay in Hong Kong?
But with training facilities closed in the United States, Ian had no choice.
With the pandemic happening, I actually got trapped here. And so ended up forming a nice group of training partners out here in the same situation as me, being able to come back to Hong Kong to train in like a closed environment.
Yeah, we are very supportive of his decision because we think it's just 1 year. I mean, you probably won't have a chance like this in your lifetime.
Hong Kong became Ian's home away from home, but with months to go until the Summer Olympics, another setback.
I had a health checkup in February where they told me I had to get heart surgery before they would allow me to swim.
Ian had an irregular heartbeat that needed to be addressed, the procedure putting another pause in his preparations.
But in order to make sure I wouldn't die, they had to do surgery, and so that happened in February.
Those 3 weeks was stressful. We were on the phone with him a lot. It was also during lockdown, so it was to me it was a mental hurdle. He has to do this procedure, and or else we cannot let him swim anymore. So it just came down to that.
Ian did return to the pool, and 5 months later, he's Tokyo bound, a journey he and his parents have endured together on different continents.
I know this is a huge accomplishment and wonderful news, but my son is so far away, it's like the other side of the world. So it feels a little strange also.
It's been okay. Not to say that I don't miss them or don't wish they could be here with me. They've honestly been so great, and they've supported me through this entire thing.
I'm happy, I'm super happy for him. I can't wait to see him.
We can't wait to see him as well. Ian Ho will compete in the preliminary heats of the 50-meter freestyle on Friday, July 30th in Tokyo. Then his parents, of course, looking forward to having him home for the first time since March of 2020. Not only will he reunite with family, he still has a graduate degree to complete at Virginia Tech. Midnight struck for the team that didn't want to be called Cinderella, but James Madison's fairy tale run in the postseason coming to an end just short of the championship series in Oklahoma City. The Dukes taking on the Sooners for the third time in 5 days in a winner-take-all semifinal showdown. Madison getting things started early with Kate Gordon, a solo bomb on the leadoff pitch. It's 1-0 JMU over the top seed Oklahoma. But then things tighten up in the fourth. A rare mistake here from Odyssey Alexander, a wild pitch scoring Oklahoma's tying run. They go on to take the lead in that fourth inning frame. Then in the fifth, Mackenzie Donahue rips one up the middle, breaks the game open as the Sooners take a 4-1 lead. Then after Jada Coleman's liner over center drives in another pair of Sooners, it was the end of the day and a career for Odyssey Alexander, the super senior, getting a standing ovation as she walks out of the circle. Softball's breakout star carried the Dukes, but in the end, Oklahoma advancing with the 7-1 victory. Welcome to Today in Tokyo from WFXR Sports. It's Friday, July 30th. I'm David DeGuzman. As always, we're bringing you the latest headlines and stories from the Summer Games with a special focus on our athletes from Virginia. You know, every swimmer dreams about competing at the Olympics, but for a Blacksburg native and Virginia Tech graduate, those dreams are about to become reality. Ian Ho booking a spot in the Summer Games after narrowly qualifying in a time trial held halfway across the globe.
Tell us what led to Simone Biles to this decision.
You know, I mean, think about it. The news came just less than 24 hours since the team competition yesterday. The individual all-around is tomorrow. So with the news of this magnitude, it is the story of these games. 25 years ago, Dodd Richardson and Team USA won the first ever Olympic softball gold medal at the Atlanta 1996 Games. Tonight, as the sport makes its return, we get some perspective from the Liberty head coach, who's considered to be one of the sport's pioneers in the U.S. Softball's back. As a fan and as someone who used to be in the Olympics, who's a forever Olympian competing for Team USA, just how excited are you to see this sport back on the world stage?
Well, my heart was just sinking when 2020, the pandemic hit and no Olympics.
Before we go, even with plenty of action left, some final thoughts on this final Friday of the Tokyo Summer Games. Every Olympics is like a postcard. It's a snapshot of a time and a place in history. These games will forever be known as the Pandemic Games, the first ever to be postponed for a year and taking place against the backdrop of a state of emergency in the city of Tokyo. The Olympic cauldron lit amid a chorus of protests and calls to cancel an event that organizers were determined to deliver. Indeed, these were the games unlike any other before it. No fans in the stands, no friends or family or that support system athletes relied on just to get them to Tokyo, where masks, COVID tests, and soft quarantines made just as much headlines as the competition itself. There are questions on whether it was all worth it, and time will tell. But as these games cross the finish line, you don't have to look past the faces of the athletes that took part to answer that question with a resounding yes. There were a total of 50 athletes with connections to the Commonwealth at these Tokyo Olympics, each with a unique journey, but all tied together by the pandemic we've all endured. From the quartet of UVA swimmers that made the podium, part of a youth movement in American swimming, to the Canadian duo whose golden success in rowing was rooted in Charlottesville. We saw redemption on the pitch and gratitude on the track. The vast majority of these athletes did not bring home a medal at all, but all have memories to last a lifetime. Nothing about these games stuck to the original script we had envisioned, but they were built to be the lights at the end of the tunnel of what we as humanity have been through for the last year and a half. We may still be in that tunnel, but for these 17 days, the athletes offered something we all needed, a sense of hope. All right, well, that'll do it for this edition of Today in Tokyo. One final note, a special thanks to our Next Star team of reporters on the ground in Tokyo, working hard and providing the stories and insight daily through these games. And also a thank you to the men and women behind the scenes, setting up the cameras, punching the buttons, and running the prompter. It's a job they do every day, but, you know, a thank you goes a long way.